In 1661, France does not yet kneel before Versailles. The palace is still a hunting lodge, surrounded by damp woods, bad roads, poor soil, and water that refuses to obey human ambition. Then comes a party. Nicolas Fouquet, the king's finance minister, opens his estate at Vaux-les-Vacants and shows France what private wealth can look like when it dares to shine too brightly. Gardens spread like geometry. Fountains rise on command. Marble, music, food, light. All of it whispers the same insult. A servant has built a dream finer than the king's. Louis XIV understands the message immediately. Fouquet is arrested. His architects, artists, gardeners, and engineers are taken. Not by request, by gravity. Power pulls talent toward itself. The young king does not merely want a palace. A palace is too small a word. The project must become a machine that proves one man can bend nature, nobility, money, time, and bodies into a single golden image. So Versailles begins in contradiction. The king wants fountains where there is not enough water. He wants endless gardens in a place that resists drainage. He wants reflection, order, and sunlight on land that gives back mud, fever, and stink. From a distance, the dream looks divine. Up close, it sounds like shovels biting wet earth. Most visitors see Versailles as a palace of gold, mirrors, gardens, and royal glory. But before it became a tourist icon, it was mud, sickness, hunger, and thousands of workers forced to turn a swamp into a stage for absolute power. In this story, you are not the king, and you are not a visitor. You are one of the nameless men at the bottom, trying to survive as the palace rises above you. Now the camera drops, not into the hall of mirrors, not onto a balcony, not beside the king, down into the trench, where the air is green with marsh breath, and the mud holds ankles, like a hand. 36,000 workers move through this landscape, like insects under a boot. Somewhere ahead stretches the impossible water system, canals, reservoirs, pipes, pumps, and the 80-kilometer work that turns thirst into forced labor. A royal garden needs water, and water demands workers. The canal does not kill people all at once. It wears them down slowly. The mud stays wet for days. The air hangs heavy over the ditch. Mosquitoes gather around every exposed wrist, every neck, every tired face. At first, one man starts shaking beside the trench. Then another drops his shovel and cannot stand back up. By evening, a cart rolls past with bodies covered in rough cloth. The next morning, the empty places are filled again. New backs, new hands, new lungs, breathing the same swamp air. Digging for a palace they may never live to see. Some men are sent near the monstrous machine of Marley, a vast device raised to drag water upward from the sea. Iron and timber groaning against gravity. Its height turns labor into a dare, wheels grind. Chains snap. Orders fall from above faster than mercy. The machine is not just engineering, it is a confession. Even the king's paradise must be fed by danger. At ground level, survival becomes arithmetic. 4 companions fall in a day. Bread grows mold before it reaches the mouth. A dead worker's ration sits inside a pouch no one has yet claimed. The overseer's whip cracks somewhere behind the line. In this place, morality is no longer a grand idea. It is an empty stomach twisting in the mud. The guard turns away for 1 second. The pouch lies near the mud. The fever is already moving through the trench. Do you steal the dead man's bread? Or stay clean and wait for the swamp to take you? What is your move? The first rise does not feel like victory. It feels like not dying. A foreman falls sick, and someone must replace him. A weak companion is blamed for missing tools. His ration is taken. His place is erased. By morning, the overseer remembers your face. That is the first lesson of Versailles. The palace does not reward goodness. It rewards usefulness. Soon, the boots that once sank in swamp water step closer to the palace. The mud is still there, only now it dries on your clothes instead of swallowing your knees. Inside, Versailles looks clean from a distance. Gold, mirrors, marble, painted ceilings. But thousands of people live and serve inside it every day, and beauty cannot hide the smell forever. Perfume, candle smoke, damp clothes, spoiled food, and chamber pots fill the servant's world. The palace is not heaven. It is another kind of swamp. A new position brings a cleaner uniform and a better ration. The work changes too. No more digging canals. Now it is wiping floors, carrying messages, hiding mistakes, and learning which scandal must disappear before sunrise. Then the first real test comes. A minor lord needs someone to blame. A young maid stands nearby, poor enough to be sacrificed, small enough to disappear. The old self from the marsh would know her fear. The new self sees a way upward. Her name is placed inside the lie. The door closes. The Lord remembers your service. A better room follows. So does a cleaner coat. In the mirror, the face still looks human, but something behind the eyes has changed. When that innocent maid is pushed forward to save your master, do you hesitate? Or has hesitation already become a luxury for people with full stomachs? Years pass, and the climb becomes smoother from the outside. Silk replaces coarse cloth. A powdered wig replaces the damp cap of the worksite. The palace no longer looks like a destination. It looks like a map of traps. Every doorway ranks the body passing through it. Every chair has politics built into its legs. An armchair, a backless stool, a place to stand near the wall. Each one tells a noble exactly how close he is to sunlight. The old warrior nobility once commanded armies from their provinces. Now they crowd inside Versailles, stripped of distance, stripped of independence, waiting for access. The king has not defeated them by locking them in a dungeon. He has done something cleaner. He has turned privilege into a leash. A duke who once led cavalry now waits to be noticed during a ritual. Morning begins with theater. The lever, the royal rising, turns the king's body into a public altar. As many as 100 courtiers press into the ritual space, not to govern France, not to solve hunger, not to fix the canals, but to compete for a shirt. The right to hand fabric to the king becomes more valuable than land, truth, or shame. A patron notices the discipline. An older courtier, sharp but tired, opens doors that would otherwise stay shut. His favor lifts the former mud worker into rooms where maps are discussed, marriages arranged, debts hidden, and reputations executed without a blade. Gratitude survives for a while. It sits quietly in the corner like an unfashionable guest. Then comes the opening. During the lever, the old patron reaches for the wrong phrase. It is small, almost nothing, a careless word about cost, about water, about how much the king's gardens demand from the realm. Silence tightens. The room smells of wax, powder, and opportunity. One correction, delivered softly, could save him. One sharper remark could bury him. The mouth chooses the second path, not loudly. Loudness is for men with no technique. A calm sentence reframes the patron's concern as disloyalty dressed in prudence. Eyes turn. The king's expression barely moves. That is enough. By afternoon, the old man's invitations thin. By winter, his rooms are colder. By spring, his name is spoken less often. This is how Versailles kills without shouting. A glance can starve a career. A pause can exile a family. Even beauty becomes a weapon. In the Hall of Mirrors, glass multiplies candlelight into a kingdom of reflections. Yet behind that shine stands another story. Craft stolen, secrets hunted, foreign mastery broken, so France can own the mirror. The surface shows glory. The making of it smells of fear. At last, the lesson becomes complete. Mud taught survival. Filth taught concealment. Etiquette teaches how to silently eliminate a rival. The rival slips in front of the king. The room waits. Do you step on him and rise, or stay silent and risk being the next sacrifice upon the altar of power? By the time Louis XV and Louis XVI inherit the great machine, Versailles has learned how to feed on attention. Festivals, hunts, dinners, gambling rooms, music, gowns, candles, the calendar becomes a net that is not laziness. It is strategy wearing perfume. A nobleman exhausted by pleasure, has little strength left for rebellion. A family ruined by court expenses must beg the system that ruined it. At the top of this structure stand red heels, not just shoes, a signal, a flash of permission. Once, bare feet slid inside swamp water. Now polished heels click across marble. The sound is clean, precise, almost musical. But beneath it, the old trench has not vanished. It has only moved inside. The closer one gets to the center, the harder it becomes to ignore the body. Kings are symbols from far away. Up close, they sweat, they digest, they age, they suffer the humiliations of flesh behind embroidered screens. Before every public ceremony, perfume floods the room. Powder falls on shoulders like pale dust. Servants carry basins in and out. The king's ordinary body has to be hidden because the palace needs him to look larger than human. The stories become difficult to separate from the smell. Parasites, digestive, misery, rotten teeth, infected gums, sour linens, stale rooms where windows open less often than ambition. Even the king is not exempt from the low comedy of biology. A court can train thousands to bow at the correct angle, yet it cannot make the human body obey the script of divinity. The higher the climb, the less pure the summit feels. Banquets glitter while common stomachs tighten beyond the gates. Candles burn in their hundreds while tax farms squeeze the countryside. A dress may cost more than a village sees in months. The palace calls this order. The hungry call it something else, but their voices still arrive as noise, not language. At the summit, no real triumph arrives, only rooms. More rooms. Rooms where people bow, flatter, and hide calculation behind the same trained smile. France has supported the American rebellion to wound Britain, and across the ocean, victory looks glorious. But inside the treasury, loans expand, money disappears, and the future begins to crack. The former marsh worker has become necessary, feared, invited. Yet every corridor carries the same truth upward from the drains. Versailles has not erased rot. It has organized it. After every betrayal, every false accusation, every careful silence, what has truly been won? A cleaner coat, a better chair, a red heel. The mud outside killed the wheat quickly. Versailles takes longer. It lets a person survive long enough to become useful, then useful enough to become empty. History does not ask permission before entering a palace. In 1789, the pressure that Versailles has pushed outward for generations begins to return. Hunger walks on the roads. Rumor moves faster than coaches. Pamphlets carry anger through Parisian streets. The people have learned to name the machine. Once the system becomes visible to those crushed beneath it, gold starts looking thin. The famous gates, bright enough to pretend eternity, face a crowd that does not admire brightness anymore. The gilding cannot explain bread. The royal crest cannot warm a child. Guards stand where servants once hurried. Boots strike the same stones that carried perfume, powdered wigs, whispered accusations, and the careful footsteps of climbers who believed the structure would last forever. The crash does not sound like philosophy. It sounds like metal, wood, shouting, and old fear-changing owners. The palace that once pulled water uphill cannot hold back hunger, moving downhill from history. Doors give way. Rooms are entered by people who were never meant to see them from the inside. The private theater of monarchy becomes public evidence. Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette are no longer distant figures arranged beneath painted ceilings. They become bodies inside events too large for ceremony. The same monarchy that trained a nation to look upward now discovers the terror of being looked at from below. Titles peel away. Rituals fail. The old language of obedience loses its force. A crown can sit on a head, but it cannot stop a century from ending. For the climber who began in mud, the collapse brings no clean justice. Too much has been done. Too many names were traded for position. Too many doors opened because someone else was pushed behind them. The revolution does not return innocence. It only exposes the cost. The palace falls as a symbol, but the person shaped by it remains harder to escape. Look back. The swamp, the stolen bread, the maid blamed for a nobleman's shame, the patron buried with a sentence, the rival stepped on at the perfect moment, the red heels, the rooms, the perfume fighting lot, and losing nothing matched. Every choice survived, layer beneath layer, like dirt under gold roof. This is your final choice. The throne is cracking, the gates are falling. The crowd is no longer outside the story. It is inside the palace, inside the room. Inside the mirror, the life built from survival has become a monument to surrender. From the deadly swamp to the polished court, every step upward demanded something human in payment. Now, history has come to collect the last debt. Was it worth it? Was the clean coat worth the first stolen ration? Was the better room worth the innocent maid? Was the king's glance worth the friend who lifted you? Maybe the palace never changed anyone? Maybe it only revealed what hunger, fear, and ambition could carve out of a person when enough doors were locked behind him. Drop your choice in the comments. If the swamp offered a final end and Versailles offered survival, which fate would you choose? What do you do?